Are you ready to take the outsourcing leap? This is the IssuesWatch podcast. Hi, I'm Don Meyer, Chief Growth Officer at the New Jersey Society of CPAs, and welcome to the IssuesWatch podcast. As finance teams face mounting pressures, from talent shortages to increasing reporting demands, many are turning to outsourcing as a strategic solution. At the same time, artificial intelligence is reshaping how financial information is processed, analyzed, and reported. A new report from Financial Executives International, in collaboration with CohnReznick, explores how outsourcing in finance and accounting is evolving in the age of AI. The study looks at how companies are using outsourcing today, how they expect those strategies to change in the years ahead, and what it all means for finance professionals. Joining me today to discuss the findings and their implications for CPAs and financial leaders are Andrei Shushkevich, President and CEO at FEI, and Kane Polikoff, Client Advisory Services Leader at CohnReznick. Welcome, Andrei and Kane.
Thank you, Don. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Don. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. So Andrei, to start, can you give us a quick overview of the survey findings? What stood out most about how finance teams are using outsourcing today?
Sure. Let me just give you a little context with that. I think we're experiencing a generational shift in the workforce, and I think that impacts what we found. 10,000 boomers are retiring on a daily basis. You have the millennials coming in. So what we're seeing really is kind of a resource, intellectual capital gap that's happening with folks as they're retiring with years of experience. And they're turning to outsourcing, consistently around it. Some of the highlights that we've seen, companies are really using it for basic accounting and HR payroll primarily right now. A little over half of respondents to the research said that they are outsourcing some functions right now, and I anticipate that will increase with time.
Kane, was there anything that stood out to you about how finance teams are using outsourcing today?
Yeah, I think that what is interesting, and we look in the last 30 years I've been in the space, that more of clients are looking to add higher value added services. So I know the basic accounting, as Andres talked about, but getting even into treasury services or even the virtual CFO, and so moving up the value chain. When you think about it, in the past was more just the transactional work. But I think a lot of organizations, as we work with, are looking for higher value add to help support and to grow their organizations.
The report shows that cost control, talent shortages, and resource gaps are key reasons companies outsource. From your perspective, Kane, which of these do you think is the most pressing issue for finance leaders right now?
I think scale. I think that as we were talking about resource shortages, cost, definitely is something that they take into consideration, but a lot of organizations are looking to scale and are having a hard time to staff their back office organizations, especially on the accounting, finance, HR, and payroll side. And so I see that in order to bring in the right team to support those efforts, to be able to grow, there's been a lot of M&A activity that we've seen, and to be able to bring on the right individuals very quickly to be able to support those efforts. So that's really what I've seen recently and continues to be some of the challenges that a lot of our clients are facing today.
Yeah, Kane, I would add to that. I think the talent shortage is real, and you're seeing that through the organizations and needing to outsource as a result.
Yeah, and I think to that point, we're seeing a lot of cases where it's hard for them to retain the staff too. There's challenges with attrition. There's been challenges with bringing staff on and having to train them, and then they leave. So having that support from having an outsourcing to help to become that extension of the team to support those organizations have helped to mitigate that risk of having to keep bringing people on to keep retraining them. Because when you leverage that offshore model, our outsourcing model, the team is using really a cross-functional team that's able to support those efforts and takes on that responsibility of training and supporting those efforts going forward.
Yeah, we've been hearing, it's interesting, Andrei, that you mentioned the talent shortage. Certainly in public accounting, that's a big issue. I'm sure it is also in corporate accounting and finance. What we're also starting to hear, though, is this issue of, I guess it's being called job hugging, that churn that kind of exists sometimes in public accounting hasn't been happening as much the last year or two because people are worried about job prospects, and they're afraid if they leave, it'll be sort of like that last in, first out type of mentality. So it'll be interesting to see how all of these things sort of converge. I think we're making progress on the pipeline front. You have this job hugging phenomenon, and then you have the outsourcing. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how finance leaders sort of juggle those things.
Yeah, I mean, the economy is an impact to that, right? If people
All right.
fear there's a recession coming and unemployment starting to increase, then they're going to start holding on to what they have versus looking for opportunities. 5 years ago is the other way around, right?
Right, right, absolutely, yeah. So, Andre, a big theme in the report is the role of AI. One-third of respondents said AI would increase their outsourcing, while more than half are still unsure. I think we're seeing a lot of that uncertainty around AI, not just around outsourcing, but around a lot of things. But why do you think there's so much uncertainty around AI and its impact on outsourcing?
Well, the advancement of AI is expanding exponentially, right? When I speak to vendors that are in the space that have been around for a few years offering products and services, they'll make a presentation on September 1st, and then by December 1st it's outdated already because there's been so much advancement. I think there's two aspects of it. From a personal productivity perspective, getting on ChatGPT or Gronk or other ones, that's low-hanging fruit and everyone has a chance to experiment with it. But when you get into enterprise level, real impactful ways, there's a complex roadmap that has to be developed, one from internal talent development to governance around it. And there's an uncertainty as where the regulatory landscape's going to shape out with this. So that's, I think, causing pause, and everyone I speak to right now is looking for use cases. Like someone
Mhm.
needs to go first, right? So that's where I think the uncertainty lies.
Yeah, and I think that's the use cases are the key things. We've been looking heavily into AI the last 2.5 years, and in addition to Copilot and everything else, from more creating emails and helping to enhance documentation, what we're looking at is workflow and categorization of accounting techniques. So I think right now we're at a point where a lot of the partners that we see out there that have been doing the R&D for AI have expanded and have enhanced very quickly. And we are working, and others within our profession are working with these providers, which we're getting very close to be able to deploy it in a way that's going to help enhance automation, performance, and to allow us to do more of less. But of course, we have to make sure it's right, and validation will be a critical factor. But we're excited to see where it's going to go. But I think it's being careful and start slowly and really understanding, the couple use cases to start with instead of jumping in there and trying to take everything all at one time. So I think that's the approach that we've seen, and a lot of other practitioners are taking that same approach as well.
So my next question was going to be, how should finance leaders approach AI when making outsourcing decisions? But it sounds like, Kane, based on what you just said, I guess the two words might be cautiously and carefully.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think when you look at workflow and outsourcing specifically, it's all about it's almost like a manufacturing process, it's simplistic, from a point of from the beginning to the end, and to be able to drive execution. When you look at, I'll just take accounts payable as an example. The goal is to get through straight through processing, where invoices can come in that can be extracted, the information can be GL coded, and then ultimately put into the general ledger system. And those decisions can be now made through OCR capture technology. However, now with AI to help make that decision on what it thinks it needs to be, and then you can have, whether it's an internal staff or an outsourcing provider, to be able to go there and validate the information, then it goes through the process directly. So that's just an example of a use case that we're seeing. But it's definitely going to change and impact us, and I'm hoping in a good way. But I think you want to validate the AI, make sure the decisions are making are the right decisions. Because if you get into a situation where you trust it 100%, and I think that's the question, knowing when it knows it's wrong. And that's where we have to find that balance from a technology side versus a people side to ensure that everything is done properly.
And I guess one of the challenges that CPAs have a reputation, whether it's myth or reality, of not being early adopters.
Yeah.
And so I think that idea of a use case that you've both mentioned could be tricky, but you cited a couple of examples. So I think it's slowly but surely it's getting there.
Well, and change management is always the key in our industry is change. I think you said that right. It's adopting the technology at the right level and understanding what that value can bring, and ensuring that the staff is properly trained on how to use it and how to validate it, which is important. So.
I mean, when you look inside organizations right now, the relationship between the CFO and the CIO has been evolving for years now, right? And they're getting more, the CFO is getting more involved in the tech side, and they're becoming strategic partners to each other. And so I think as that evolves and as technology really takes over from the processes and everything, that's going to evolve, as well as finding the right partners. And it's really true partnerships for the providers of the tech to help an organization go forward and scale, to your point earlier, Kane.
Mhm.
Okay, good point. So Kane, for our NJCPA members, what opportunities or challenges does the outsourcing trend create for accounting firms and professionals?
Yeah, I mean, I think the opportunities is from a staffing is have an extension of your team. So I think as organizations are seeing enormous growth, we're seeing enormous growth within our organization that you're able to leverage them from a capacity builder, from a support perspective, or even identify certain skills that are maybe very difficult for your organization to find. I think that's something that you want to look at and to determine, yeah, find the right partner to be able to do that. Some of the challenges may be is identifying the right partner, is determining who you want to partner with, how you're going to support that, and making sure that you set up that process correctly. It's not just turning the light on and it magically it works. So it's there's governance. I think, Andrea, as you talked about, it's the approach, it's having the right oversight to be able to drive that so you do it right the first time. And it takes work, and it takes identifying the right individuals within your organization to be that bridge to help expedite that process, which is important to be successful going forward. And don't try to take everything on too fast. Like I said earlier, it's identifying maybe a phased approach, starting maybe easier with transactional volume with AP as an example, and then maybe move up the value stream as you look at that. But just take it easy, build it right, identify what the definition of success is for you, and then find that right partner that will help you moving forward.
Outsourcing partners like CohnReznick they will have experienced and seen a lot of different use cases, from micro pilot programs to larger engagements around that, and bringing that collective value across industries to a new company as a partner, I think is going to be a valuable resource for organizations, right? Because everyone's looking for use cases right now to get examples of how can I do this, on regardless of the size of the project. And I think we're going to look back 2 years from now and say, those advisors are going to be very knowledgeable about what's happening and have compare and contrast opportunities to have discussions with CFOs around it.
It's important if you're going down that journey to not only the use cases but get references or examples of situations that are very similar to your situation, and finding that balance. I mean, the good news is that we've been doing this has been in play, and I've been doing this for 30 years. So there's a lot of good results out there, and experience that can help. This is not the beginning of something. This is something that's been going on for a long time. So is learning from past mistakes of others of what not to do is important for you, to look forward to take that into consideration to help make your experience a great one from the beginning.
Yeah, that's a great point. So this last question, actually, I guess is going to summarize, I think, some of the points you both made during the podcast, and it's the reliance on outsourcing providers will grow significantly over the next 3 to 5 years. I think we can just assume that. What advice, or how would you sum up the advice you've already given, would you give to finance leaders who are considering outsourcing strategies right now or in that 3 to 5 time frame? What's one or two things that you think they should really think about? I thought Kane was a great example, was just sort of learning from others' mistakes or learning from your own mistakes. I thought was a great point.
For me, I think the two key areas to prepare for outsourcing or in-house, however you do it, is you need to train up your staff, right? You need to have internal professional development and make sure everyone understands the nuance of the technologies that you're looking at using. That because they're going to be the partner to the outsource vendor that you have, or you're going to look to, identify pilot programs that you could do internally. So internal training, I think, is key to this. As a first point. And second, on governance, you need to think about controls. If this is going to enter the finance function, you got to think about all those type of things, how it's managed, how are you going to view it, particularly around AI. That those are kind of two key starting points for me, is think about that on your roadmap, but training and governance.
Yeah, and maybe just to add is expectations. So not only the governance and the training that you shared, but what is the expectation of a partner? What does that mean to you? And how do you know it's going well? And the controls are critical, the oversight as you shared, but from an expectation from quality to turnaround time to results, and to really define that and define that expectation, and it should be a team working together as a partner and continues to improve. And I like to say this is if you start that process, it's only the beginning. Is what is that continuous improvement, whether you leverage technology and your tech stack to enhance what you have and to make it easier to do that, or deploying automation or AI. You want to think through that roadmap of where you are today and where you want to go, and then kind of march down that path. But I think as it's a partnership, and you have to treat each other as partners and find ways to improve and challenge yourselves. And I think that's the critical thing, is how do we get better? And
Right.
I think as long as you do that, and everybody makes mistakes, and whether internally or leveraging an outsourced provider, but it's how, when those mistakes happen, you learn from them to improve them and or mitigate that from happening again. And I think that's a critical thing. You want to be together with your partner to be able to get to where you want to be, which will allow you to scale, will allow you to provide timely, accurate financials, allow you to see information more readily for you to make a better business decision. And there's a lot of value that comes from that.
Yeah, and I think, Andre, I just wanted to follow up on the point you made about training. I know some studies have come out recently that showed kind of a disconnect between the employee's desire to want to use AI for whatever task that may be, and the lack of training that's currently being provided to a lot of those employees. And I think that's sort of across the board. So I think that's an important consideration. If AI is going to play a role in so many different areas in finance and accounting, providing that training, I think, can maybe help mitigate some of those mistakes that we've been talking about, or at least reduce the learning curve.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. But not only doing the training, but what we're doing is we're going to have them part of the evaluation process and helping to define what's going to happen. So if you bring practitioners into that, or staff to be part of that solution, it helps them when the solution's in place to embrace it and to help train others. So I think that's another thing that we see as a value add, is if you make them part of the solution, then they're going to help others feel comfortable with what's being deployed going forward.
Andre and Kane, thanks so much for joining us today. You shared a lot of great insights. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Don.
Thanks for listening or watching. View the show notes to download the report and access additional resources.